The Walt Disney Company has seen something like a 70% drop in the box office totals it is receiving since 2019. Now, you might blame that on the pandemic, perhaps, and say we're in a post-pandemic world. But if that's the case, why is Disney on track to drop hundreds of millions of dollars versus their 2022 box office totals? We'll show you the numbers and we'll explain why we on this channel continue to report on the downfall of one of the West's biggest entertainment companies ever. All right, folks, welcome back. It is a joy to have each and every one of you with me today. I am so excited about this video. I cannot wait to show you some numbers and dive into some stuff that you may not have known in the past. We'll do the job the mainstream media should be doing, but we're happy to do it in their place. Folks, as we get ready to do this, if you like content like it, consider clicking the like button, share, subscribe. And when you click it, you stick it to the algorithms. It is the notification bell. Yes, indeedy, the Walt Disney Company is on track to lose massive amounts of money in comparison to their past performances in the years that were just not so long ago. When we look back to 2019, take a look at this article out of Box Office Pro, and then we'll work our way to the current year and show you why this is indeed a catastrophic failure of Disney, despite what some may be trying to spin. Here we have out of the article by Chris Egerton. The Walt Disney Studios closes out 2019 with record $11.11 billion globally. And if you included Fox, they were $13.15 billion. By the way, they no longer question whether you should include Fox, because if they don't include Fox, well, those numbers I said at the beginning of the video, they get way worse. Walt Disney Studios grossed a combined $13.15 billion globally across its Disney and Fox film releases in 2019, the studio announced today. The number includes $4.32 billion in North America and $8.82 billion overseas. Among Disney titles alone, the studio topped the $11 billion mark worldwide for the first time in industry history, far surpassing the previous record of $7.6 billion set by the studio in 2016. In fact, Disney's non-Fox releases in 2019 nearly matched the studio's previous global record in international grosses alone, bringing in a total of $7.35 billion for the year. The previous international record set by Disney in 2016 was $4.6 billion. And of course, it goes on to tell us some of those movies that were doing so well. Let's take a look at them, because we find some things that are interesting here. In fact, these may have been the great warning signs that trouble was ahead, and if you've been following channels such as this, you were around to hear us claiming, hey, there's a problem. Of course, this channel was not yet in existence, but I was over on other places saying the same thing. It says, digging further into the numbers, Disney released a record 6 movies last year that surpassed $1 billion globally. Wouldn't that be wonderful? Captain Marvel, there's your first red flag, folks. This was one of those movies that Disney inserted, pretended that it was a major part of a storyline, had folks go see a character that they did not enjoy, and essentially ripped them off with their wallets being the victims. That was a warning. Avengers Endgame did extremely well. Aladdin did extremely well. Toy Story 4, again, a slight dip in quality of content, but did quite well based on the strength of the brand. The Lion King, sort of the same. Frozen 2, sort of the same. And then, of course, Star Wars, The Rise of Skywalker, only $815 million. That was a highly damaging film, and we can now see just how damaging it was. The problem for Disney was that although they were reaching these massive heights in 2019, behind the scenes, content was on the way through the pipelines that would continue to push Disney into more and more divisive content production, the type of content that parents and families may not be comfortable with, the kind of content that fans, when they go see it, walk away disillusioned, feeling as though their heroes have been destroyed. So, how did things pan out after the pandemic? Well, let's look at 2022. This was supposed to be a comeback year for Disney, but that it was not. We have from the same website, Walt Disney Studio closes out 2022 with 7th consecutive year at #1 globally. It's a very cheery, happy, positive, put a little rainbow on it kind of title, but here's what it says. The Walt Disney Studios has posted a global box office gross of $4.9 billion. $4.9 billion. Remember, over $13 billion from 2019 at the height. Now, coming back from the pandemic, 4.9 from 16 theatrical releases for the 2022 calendar year. Now, folks, notice the 16 theatrical releases. This is going to be a key component of what we're discussing and how Disney has managed to stay at the top spot, including $2 billion domestic and $2.9 billion international. That figure puts the studio at number one in the domestic, international, and global box office for 2022. This also marks the 7th consecutive year that the Walt Disney Studios has been number one at the global box office. So 7 years at that run, perhaps 10 to 12 years as the dominant company on the planet for creating content such as this. But that doesn't mean that Disney forever stays in that spot, and they made decisions that have put them in a bad place. Here's what we've got out of 2022. Disney released 4 of the top 10 films of the year domestically, which includes Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. Not that great. Didn't recast the role. I have mixed feelings about it. I'm sure some other people do too. Doctor Strange: The Multiverse of Madness. Not a good film at all, and really disappointed fans and damaged Marvel. Avatar: The Way of Water. Now, this is a funny one, because remember, what did I say about 2019? They took special care to mention that it was Fox, not completely Disney, that reached those totals. Now, Fox is fully integrated, apparently. But the interesting thing about it is, Avatar: The Way of Water, well, most of that money goes to James Cameron. In a twist of fates here, although it is distributed by Disney officially because Disney owns Fox, Cameron had worked out all kinds of deals where Disney doesn't get a lot of money out of this. So that $400 million, if you take that away, well, this total drops down dramatically, and Disney's down to about $4.5 billion instead in total box office. Thor: Love and Thunder, $343 million. Again, folks, look at how far those totals had come down. And Thor: Love and Thunder, again, not a great movie. And what you're not seeing are those other films that Disney put out, Lightyear, Strange World, etc. Films that were so bad and families had caught on to that they had, well, disappeared the audience. Well, some might have said, though, okay, 2022 is a comeback year. And Disney remained at the top spot simply by the girth of content that they could produce, right? They have so many studios, they have so many outlets, they have so many films. So even though their movies were largely down dramatically, and especially when you consider the rise in movie ticket prices, well, Disney's still okay. Disney's still number one, except that, yeah, it's just death by a thousand cuts because all of these budgets are bloated and Disney's losing money on each and every one. Well, that's a little bit of an overstatement, but many of the films Disney is losing money on. So how many films can Disney continue to produce at that level and continue to lose money at that level? Let's get now to where we are today. And this is shocking, folks. Really, truly shocking. And if you're still with us, I do appreciate it. Here is here's where it all comes down. The rubber meets the road right here. Out of Deadline by Anthony D'Alessandro from July 6th. Disney, despite Indy 5 and Elemental, misfires, leading the 2023 global box office with $3.4 billion. Oh, but Pro! They're only halfway through the year. They'll surely have great outcomes with future movies, and they'll easily surpass what we saw in the last year. Well, probably not. You see, Disney does not have a lot ready to go for the rest of the year. We have Haunted Mansion, and Haunted Mansion is not likely to do very much. We also have the Marvels, and if Indiana Jones is any indicator, or if Ant-Man Quantumania is any indicator as to how fans are feeling about some of these postmodern heroes and what they do, I have a feeling that's not going to do too well. And then finally, Disney has a movie called Wish. And when it comes to Wish, well, folks, exactly how has Elemental done? Not good. Not good. And so we might assume that Disney, despite having $3.4 billion in revenues, and by the way, we believe their losses probably exceed that. But despite having $3.4 billion, Disney will struggle to top $4 billion total. In fact, I think the number they will probably arrive at is about $4.2 billion. We'll see how that plays out. That's projecting a bit, but it's also reading the tea leaves and taking a look at where they have been this year, how their films have performed, and playing that out with the very few releases they have left. Now, $4.2 billion, of course, is a decrease from where they were just last year, right? So 4.9 to 4.2, That means a $700 million drop is likely. And when you consider that kind of a drop versus the more than $13 billion they were making in 2019, that's a 70% approximate, because we don't know exactly where this will land, but about a 70% drop overall. Now, let me ask you this. If you were looking at a company that had a 70% drop in one of their key markets, would you say that that company was in a healthy place, or would you say that they were in an utter free fall? I would say that Disney is in a catastrophic free fall. And the issue with the box office is that if the box office drops by 70%, what about those other indicators across the company? How long until they begin to falter as well? Because the box office tends to be sort of the engine room for the company that drives all kinds of new content, that drives all kinds of new merchandise, that drives all kinds of new shows on Disney Plus, that drives all kinds of new subscribers, that drives all kinds of new interest in going to the parks to see these new characters. Disney's not doing that. 70% drop. 70% drop. Let's say it again. Now, that is how you arrive at a situation where companies begin to introspect and say, how do we prevent ourselves from dive bombing and investors and shareholders finding this out? Well, let's take a look at another article from the same author, and we're doing that on purpose, out of Deadline, Anthony D'Alessandro here. Notice that just 3 days earlier, July 6th, he had been promoting that Disney was still in the lead. Disney was still winning at the box office. Well, things got worse in those 3 days until July 9th. And this is the article: Insidious, The Red Door slams on Indiana Jones with $32 million plus opening. Indy defeated by a very, very small horror film with 1/22nd. That's even hard to say. Let me rephrase it. About 1/20th of the budget the Red Door had versus Indy. Now, I want to scroll down on this, because where I want to go with this, it goes on to talk way, way, way too much, in my opinion, about how Insidious managed to pull this off. It really didn't pull much off. Indy just collapsed. But buried in this article, down at the bottom, we need to take note of this, because when people inside the trades in Hollywood begin to have rather obvious ideas come to their mind and then made manifest in their articles, we should take note of it. For Sound of Freedom, it says the film everyone is talking about will peg third place with 16.9 million and a running 6-day total of 38.9 million by Sunday. Those are industry estimates. Angel Studios is calling the weekend at 18.2, 40 million for 6 days. Don't know where that extra magic money is coming from. Like the right-wing crowdfunding. Again, now look, Anthony doesn't like this. Anthony doesn't like, apparently, churches and religious organizations fighting against, what's happening with children. Anthony doesn't like that. That's why we've got to call into question. And right wing is bad guy. Okay. Anthony says, aside from bad guy groups funding ticket sales here and Angel Studios energizing its bad guy followers, the Jim Caviezel action thriller is pulling in a huge Latino and Hispanic crowd at 30%. And here is the part that flummoxes all of these people. They don't know what to do about it, because they would love to have 30% Latino and Hispanic on any movie. They would love it. And by the way, this is what happened with the Mario Brothers movie. This is what's happened with many of these other movies that have succeeded, like Top Gun Maverick, with movies like Avatar: The Way of Water. The Latino Hispanic crowd has shown up en masse for these things, but they don't show up for what Hollywood wishes they would. Along with 57% Caucasian, 5% Black, and 9% Asian other. Note, folks, that's nearing 50% non-white. Women are dominant here at 58%. Again, Hollywood would love on any movie, especially superhero films, to get 58% women. They love that stuff. With older people showing up big at 57% over 45 and 37% over 55. And guess what? That is also what we saw with Top Gun Maverick and how it took off. How did that happen? Well, the older crowd has more money, and they'll go back and they'll watch it over and over again. And then D'Alessandro says this. This is exactly how a faith-based movie plays. Strongest markets are South, South Central, and the middle of the country. I've got to have better geographical delineations than that. I don't know what some of those. We're talking Southeast? Are we talking about Southwest? Are we talking about Rust Belt? I don't know. Highest grossing theater in the nation, Regal Thoroughbred in Nashville with 53K. How often do we see that? Hardly. And he goes on to say this is all very, very reminiscent of American Sniper, but on an indie scale and level. I don't mean in terms of gross, but in stoking red state moviegoers. Now, here's where Anthony D'Alessandro finally makes a poignant point recognizes the big thing here, but not fully. Let's explain it. This is why we're reading this paragraph. It says, but in stoking red state moviegoers, which Hollywood doesn't do enough, leaving money on the table with what is perhaps the missing link in the post-pandemic box office. That's correct. Movie theaters used to enjoy the attendance of people of all political spectrums. And what has happened is that the studios have made the decision to push propaganda and divisive content in such a way that they have eliminated vast swaths of their audience. Now, what Anthony does not get, and what I'm going to explain right here, and thank you for hanging in there because you're going to be smarter for this. Here's the deal. When 70% of your market has evaporated, at a time when the price of admission has gone up dramatically, so that shouldn't be able to happen. But when 70% of your market has evaporated, it is not just the conservatives that have left. Yes, perhaps red states is a great euphemism for the fact that you have driven away the conservatives, but that's insufficient to explain a 70% drop, which is what we have seen out of Disney. And no, it isn't because people are afraid to go to theaters because of the pandemic. And no, it isn't because they're out of the habit. Movies like Top Gun Maverick, Avatar: The Way of Water, Sonic the Hedgehog, the Super Mario Brothers movie, all of those have shown that families will happily go to the movies. The Minions did that as well. When there is content that families can trust, they go to the movies still in droves. You can't have historically high, well-received, and excellently grossing films, and then at the same time claim that people won't go see the movies. That doesn't work. Now, what does it mean when you have a 70% drop in your market? What does that mean? It means that the moderates have left as well. This breaks down to a political issue. Seriously, and this is not a political channel, but we have to say this. Who is still out there going to see Disney movies? 30% of the audience, 30% of the country, 30% who are still aligned with what Disney is doing. They've lost 70%. They've lost the conservatives and the moderates. Now, folks, you can be a classical liberal and view this channel and enjoy it, and I welcome you here. You can be a moderate, and I welcome you here. You can be a conservative, and I welcome you here. You can be someone who is apolitical, and I'm still happy to have you. This is not a political channel. But when politics and the entertainment industry somehow touch and intersect, we need to talk about it. Disney has lost 70% of their audience because they are disconnected from 70% of society. And that was a decision that Iger made back when he was looking to run for president, and he started bringing in ideologues and partisans, and now people who have begun running these studios. This began with stuff like The Last Jedi, and we were told over and over and over by the media that people would love it. It was just a small minority that hated it. It was these crazy bots from overseas that were review bombing it. And over and over and over, we saw these films that came out and did these very divisive things. And we said, this is going to crash the company. This is going to crater you. And over and over and over, the mainstream media said, no, it won't. It won't. It won't. They're tiny. They're stupid. They don't know what they're talking about. Okay. It's 2023. Disney is on track to lose 70% of their box office from 2019 to now. They didn't have to. They could have kept making movies that do the kind of money that Mario makes, the kind of money that Top Gun Maverick makes, the kind of money that Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning will make. They didn't. They decided they wanted to go the route that gives them duds. And the only thing that is helping Disney right now is that apparently DC decided the same somewhere along the way and gave us terrific wonders like Shazam, like The Flash, etc. And that has removed some competition from the field. Unfortunately for Disney, Tom Cruise will still continue to provide it. That brings me to the last point, folks, right here. How was Hollywood led astray? Well, they listened to the wrong people. They should have listened to us. They should have listened to you. Instead, they listened to things like these Rolling Stone tweets. I won't read them. You can just see them. These are the kinds of nuttery that the people at Hollywood listened to, bought into, believed. And this is the kind of stuff that has led them completely astray. Now the murmurings begin. We've got to get back the red states. We need to get the red states. It's a really, really, really obvious thing. Because just imagine if there was a company out there, say Lowe's or Home Depot, and they realized, oh, we need to open our stores in the red states or the blue states or wherever they had decided to close them. That's what these entertainment companies have done. They've decided that middle America isn't important. And now they've realized, oh, wait, their money is. But again, it goes beyond. This is bigger than just red versus blue. This is everybody in the middle and to the right has left. Stage left. All right, folks, if you like content like this, consider clicking the like button, share, subscribe, and when you click it, you stick it to the algorithms. It is the notification bell. My discussion on this and journey through the numbers has come to a conclusion. However, I would love to know what you think about this. Please drop a comment down below. I read them. I care about your thoughts. You are important here on this channel. Folks, we've got the Pro Show live this Thursday, 5 to 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Eric July will be joining us to talk about the Rippaverse, the exciting comic series that he has started. It's a fantastic victory in a landscape of failures. You are not going to want to miss that show. We'll also discuss entertainment broadly, as we always do. So, folks, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, keep learning, keep growing, and keep having fun.
Say it ain't so. This just in. Disney lost money on another movie. Why, that can't be. I thought that John Lasseter fella over at Pixar was cranking out the latest hits, and Marvel was unstoppable, and Disney princesses were a thing, and Star Wars was a multi-billion-dollar money-making franchise.
I overheard you talking about Disney, and wanted to let you know you're really behind the ball. If you were getting great articles from thatparkplace.com and subscribe to WDW Pro's YouTube channel, you'd actually be ahead of the culture curve and have entertainment explained.